recording. We are out.
All right. Then I will call the Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 meeting of the Monona Park and Rec Board to order. You've noted the roll, Jake.
I have.
Our first ever 3 o'clock regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 14th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Back over here. We don't have any appearances, do we, Jake? Well, Andy's here on an item on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. And we don't have any appearances. Declare the appearance section closed. There's no unfinished business. 5A, new business. Exclusive use of park request. Friends of San Damiano celebration on the shore event September 8th. Jake, do you want to introduce this?
Sure. Just to introduce it, in your packet, you have the special event application outline the event that the Friends of San Damiano is having. Andy Kitzlar, president of the Friends, is here to explain. In your packet also is the ordinance regarding exclusive use of park. And just basically what that allows them to do is to have kind of a ticketed event, admission-based event to the facility and be able to control who comes in and out and what type of vendors can be on site during the event. Normally it is one that we have approved for the festival as a comparable.
Okay.
And so I'll turn that over to Andy and probably Pat to help explain the event a little bit.
Right before you do, I have one quick question for the chair. And that is, because I am a vendor at that event, do I need to abstain from voting on this at all? Is there a conflict?
You're a vendor at the event. Are you going to be?
Yes, I'm the caterer. So
Yeah, probably.
okay.
All right. Thanks, Jake, for teeing it up, and Pat, feel free. We can trade on and off back and forth, but hopefully everybody has been able to take a look at the application. So what we're trying to do on September 8th is have a relatively large scale fundraising event for the Friends of San Damiano, but really for the improvement and movement forward of the property. And so part of that is on September 8th, we are going to have a tented and ticketed event. The tents will be located on the backside of the house. Individuals would come up through the circle drive, either walking or they could have their car, drop themselves off, and then we'll have off-site parking set up as well as a little bit of on-site parking. But generally, for the purpose of this request and for this application, we're looking for exclusive use, not that we are planning on not allowing individuals to be on the property, but just being able to control kind of our little space a little bit more. And then also in the unfortunate situation where we would have to ask somebody to remove themselves, which we have had that occurrence in the past, but we haven't been able to actually remove the individual because it is a open park and property and we didn't have exclusive use. So, you know, on the unfortunate side of trying to plan ahead and think about all situations, there is that situation as well, that this would allow us to work with police officers and to remove an individual if necessary. So Again, you know, it's hopefully going to be a nice community event that will occupy a large portion of the property. We'll get some new people onto the property, but it will also raise some important funds for the future of that property. And so we're hoping to have the conversation today and seeing if we can have exclusive use of the property for set up the event and then take down. Pat, did I miss anything or any highlights that you wanted to add as well? Oh, you're on mute. Pat, you're on mute.
Pat.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you covered most things, Andy, but the size of the event should be about 200 people total is what we're looking at from guests and vendors.
And then the one last thing I'll add too is we did receive at least board approval yesterday afternoon for our liquor license. And included in that is an exclusion from a double fencing. So somewhat all the more reason to also have exclusive use.
What would the hours be?
From
The
5
event hours themselves are 5 to 11. Sorry, Pat.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I assume you'd have this, I don't have the permit in front of me. Well, I do down here. So you're looking to begin. What would the hours of the exclusive use be, I guess is what I'm interested in.
Well, the event itself, I don't know if we would need it for the setup. Do you think, Andy?
I mean, I don't think so. I think the application might have, I don't know if it had a specific time frame, but it might have just had dates. I mean, I know, you know, I don't think not having that before the event wouldn't inhibit our ability to set up, because there'll certainly be tent set up probably the day prior, porta potties and different things like that. So, you know, Jake, I don't know if that would matter as far as those things go, but yeah, I would say, kind of to Pat's point, exclusive use for the purposes that I'm thinking of, whether good, bad, or otherwise, would really just be for the event itself. And maybe an hour on either side of it, just to be safe.
Okay. And what was the end time?
11.
11. I did hear this yesterday, so you think I'd remember it.
It's okay.
Anybody else have questions? And does somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the proposal for exclusive use of the park for the event.
Is there a second? Great.
Second.
You can't.
This would be also, the motion would also include a fee waiver in our schedule of fees. The exclusive use of park permit is $1,000. And so this would be a waiver of those fees as well.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Okay. Actually, Patrick, I think
Yep.
if we're
I
gonna
can't. Yep.
if we're gonna be picky about the rules, then let's be consistently picky.
No, I understood. I just totally forgot for a second.
Kelly is making a second.
I will
think.
second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
And any opposed? And we have the one abstention and the motion carries.
Okay, just for the records of the minutes, being that I'm on the Friends board and involved in this event, I don't know if a vote from me is acceptable either, kind of like Patrick. So if not, don't count it.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I don't know that, I mean, I think we've had, when it's a citizen member of an organization, I think we they have generally been allowed to vote and make
Okay.
motions in the past, like, because we've got the swim club coming up and so I
For me-
think it's fine,
Yeah, I think the difference for me is that I have a financial interest.
right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me get back to my agenda. 5B is discussion recommendation of the facility use agreement for Monona Grove Youth Football. Jake, do you want to introduce this or talk about this rather?
Sure. So we've had a longstanding partnership with Monona Grove Youth Football in the use and development of Hawk Ride Field at Ahuska Park. Back in 2017, we went through this for a longer term facility use agreement, and somewhere between it being recommended for approval at Parks Board and approval at council, that did not happen, most likely on me. We are still having a year-to-year partnership with Monona Grove Youth Football for exclusive priority use of Hawk Ride Field for games, practices at both Ahuska and Winnequa Park, with a annual fee that's paid to the city, housed in the recreation budget. Those funds help defer the cost of paint and field maintenance. And over the years, the football organization has also contributed to other improvements at the park, including an electronic scoreboard, the original reseeding and regrading of the field, planting of trees, and are committed to extending the concrete seating bleacher area on the home side for this year, along with purchasing equipment for the maintenance of the field. They are also still interested in deferring the cost of stadium style bleachers at the facility, and that is something we're actively looking to make improvements with the ADA accessibility and better seating accommodations. So in your packet is the highlights of the facility use agreement. We did increase the fee per year to $2,000 a year. And what changed from that original agreement is our staff does all the field lining now for the games, and has the additional practice field at Winnequa Park. So we are now fortunate to house the 5th grade, 6th grade team and the 7th and 8th graders all in Monona, which is comprised of kids from both Monona and Cottage Grove. So the season starts in August with practices, and then games are in September through early October.
I had one question, Jake, and in the very beginning, you under permitted use, I believe it is, you call out that there's no more than 40 games in a calendar year. It doesn't say how many practices would be allowed, although it does then spell out the
Yeah,
days
so
when
the-
they would have priority. So I guess it's
Sure. The practices aren't on the Hawk Ride field.
right.
They're on the middle side, the middle field. And so really it was just an effort to maintain the quality of the playing field and have a limit. And originally we did that before the Pee Wee, when it was Pee Wee, 5th and 6th grade, and we're playing on the high school field. And then we wanted to make sure that we could accommodate bringing that group in, but still keeping the condition and quality of the field high. So that's in there purposefully. The practice field, the middle open field, and some of our recreational fields at Winnequa, we have less of a concern over the amount of wear and tear are placed on those fields.
Okay. Jeff?
Jake, with this facility use agreement, it's a 15-year agreement. And others, like the swim team, is only 1 year. Why the 15-year for this agreement?
Sure. The 15-year agreement was similar to what we did with the trees on or the Christmas tree sales at Ahuska Park. And from the MG youth football standpoint, they were looking for some security for a home. And that was, I think, the original intent of putting a substantial amount of money into improvements at the field, that they would have access to it. With all of our facility use agreements, we do have the ability to get out of the agreement with written notice, and that's included in this agreement. So if there ever was an issue of challenges or the organization going defunct, we would be able to, or they could get out of the agreement as well.
And then with it, you were talking about the increase in the fees, they're $2,000 and then they go up 5% each year. Does that cover the cost for your staff doing the work on the fields?
Yeah, yep, that's where the increase comes from, is the supply cost for paint and then the labor time that it takes to do the field. And we don't have to do them, you know, on a, basically it's a 6-week season, and we probably relined the championship field 3 times during the game season. We don't have to do it weekly.
Okay. Maybe anyone else have other questions? Or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Yeah,
And,
and I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agreement signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Let me get back to my agenda again. Item let's see, football, 6C, 5C, discussion recommendation of the facility use agreement for Monona Swim and Dive.
So we've had this agreement drafted well before the pool season started, and due to, you know, several circumstances of meetings getting canceled, we are now, what, Rob, 2 weeks away from the end of the Monona Swim and Dive season.
Yeah,
And
we're
have
2 or
been
3. Yeah.
functioning under this agreement. Rob Bluthine, Monona resident and president of Monona Swim and Dive, is here today. This agreement has been crafted over a decade or more, to a place that I think is beneficial to the city and the residents and the taxpayers for use of the pool, and allows over 300 kids to get dedicated swim times and compete and represent Monona area wide. So from my perspective, and speaking on behalf of Missy, our assistant director who deals with aquatics, it's really a strong partnership and great communication between Missy and the Mo board. And from my perspective, I always thank Rob for his efforts representing Monona when we host swim meets. It's very proud to have people come in and love Monona the way we all do, and represent Monona in a positive manner, and give our resident kids another recreational opportunity. So I'd like to turn it over to Rob and maybe just give a little report on operations for Mo this year.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jake. As Jake said, my name is Rob Boitling. I am the board president. I have 2 kids on the team this year in swimming, and we have over, I think, this Kelly counted 318 athletes between our swim and dive teams. We've had a very successful year thus far. Lots of good times had by all. We have a brand new head dive coach, Jan Lancer, is a freshman at UW-Madison on the dive team. So he's brought in a lot of new energy and to the dive team. And Kelly Chadish is our head swim coach, and she's been with us forever. And she's doing great. We have a staff of well over 20 coaches, from assistants to junior coaches, helping kids in the water. And our unified program is being modeled across the All City League as well. So our unified team provides access to those kids that otherwise won't get it, kind of modeled after Special Olympics. So we're proud to say that we, as Mo, drove the acceptance of 3 events across the league for special, just for unified team competitors. And so they get counted and timed and scored just as any other event would. And so they are part of the team in full. It's not an exhibition event. And so that includes all dual meets as well as the All City Championship as well. So we are proud of that Mo has been a leader in that arena and continues to push those forward. So like Jake said, we have a great relationship with the city and thank them for a lot of crazy things. This year we had the new one of air quality and we had to adjust the dive meet as a result right before the holidays. So we just hosted that dive meet last night against Shorewood and was successful in doing that. So appreciate the flexibility of all the pool staff, Jake and Missy, and being accommodating with everything that kind of pops up. So it's once again, we look forward to continuing the partnership and calling the Monona City Pool our home for many years to come.
All right, well, I've joined Jake, and I'm sure everybody thanking you for the work that you do. I live near the pool, so it brings some life to the neighborhood, that's for sure. So are there any other questions or a motion, Jake?
I just want to point out that during our operating budget discussion is when we set the fees for the facility use groups generally. And last year, the fee for this year for Mo was $70 per swimmer. So that comes out to over $22,000 in rental income that goes directly to the pool budget. It defers the levy. And that's guaranteed revenue. And it counts for probably 80% of our rental revenue. So when you look at the rental revenue of our budget, a large chunk of that is from Mo renting the pool, who swim in any kind of weather, 50 degrees and colder, and are there. So they certainly pay their fair share for use of the pool.
All right. Then would someone like to make a motion?
I can move to approve the agreement with Monona Swim Club, Monona Swim and Dive Club.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Patrick, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agreement signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. And the next item is discussion of the capital budget. Just, I believe that's the correct, more or less the correct title of this agenda item. Jake.
All right, I'm going to share my. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen here on a few things. We'll start with get rid of that. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Scrolling through the packet. Okay, so there'll be a couple. In your packet is included the budget instructions that we get each year from the finance director with what the mayor is requesting our department heads do. So looks at prior year's total borrowing and what the goal is for this year. We're at between 3 million and 2.5 million in general obligation borrowing, which when we look at all the needs around the departments is the requests from each department head and probably committees will far exceed that number. And so we, as a staff, I try to use that as a start and keep that in mind of where other departments and other needs of the city are. Also included was what was approved in the 23 to 27 5-year CIP plan. So last year when we did this, we were looking at 2024 projects in the neighborhood of 535,000. As we will need another meeting to fully develop and discuss the capital budget, I just wanted to bring a few things up of where we're at. The Winnequa Park Ped Bike Path project is the biggest one that we have not started, that was approved for this year. As you may recall, this board recommended to amend the capital budget to include the second and third phase, or the second phase that we were talking about for paths. I'm going to bring that up. So see if we can go here. Okay, so everyone see the map on the screen here? This was a little bit of what we discussed. The green line represents the existing path that would be replaced with a wider path, moved on to city property, and there'd be some stormwater improvements that would have to be made because there's some storm drains that tie in at various parts. The blue line indicates, at least conceptually, coming off Greenway, making a looped path around the most part of the park, hooking up into the Fireman's Park Shelter, and allowing for a pedestrian path from Progressive Lane, Winnequa Road into the park. Bike rack parking is indicated in red, based on the age of the playground and some of the inspection points that we have. We would potentially, with this project, be looking at replacing the playground. The gray boxes are conceptually just the viewing areas that would comply with the ADA law for observation of the spectators for our recreational program offerings that we have. And so that's kind of a little bit of a map of, at least conceptually. We have received another design proposal that would probably fit a little bit better within our budget. But as I started putting some numbers to these improvements, based on bid results in the area of paving, concrete work, excavation, and I've got some updated numbers that are a little more expensive, a lot more expensive than maybe what we originally thought. So with that work there, this is the initial, at least, list proposal. I'd still need to vet some of this pricing, but we're probably more looking at about a $500,000 investment into the PED system. That does include $125,000 worth of playground equipment and surfacing, which is probably about the cost it would take if you wanted to use that area at Fireman's and put in a poured in place surfacing, which is a kind of a hard rubber that's more ADA friendly. The Schaefer shelter remodel, I got some pretty solid quotes around the board on all the efforts it would take to do that. And that price has gone up to approximately $150,000 for direct repairs to the shelter, concrete work around the shelter, and improvements to the fencing dugout area. And we now have a hole in the roof from vandalism of the open air shelter. And so I added that number to re-roof and repair the open air shelter as well. That brings that potential construction number up to about $230,000. So the construction prices continue to increase. Certainly, I'm pretty confident in the number of the Schaefer shelter based on some of the direct quotes that I got for repair. I do, you know, we would need to have the design done to kind of flush out what the projected cost of the pass would be. But based on my calculations on the number of linear feet of asphalt path and square footage of concrete expected to need, I certainly would rather be more conservative with the budgeting than less and go out to bid and have it be way higher than what we had approved for a budget. The other items that we talked about during our bike tour, and my apologies, that was a little negative that night, and I generally like to live under the so what, now what mentality. And so we look to address some of those issues that we have. And so mainly it's what I would look at as deferred maintenance, as we have now gotten to that point in the life cycle of a lot of our facilities, is after we built them, we now have to maintain them. And so I'd like to start some annual line items in the capital budget to help address some of those issues that we have with our facilities, including staining of our shelters. This would be probably 2 shelters a year to stain the cedar components of all of our new style shelters, starting with Dream Park. That's in the worst condition. The Maywood Park engineering is kind of starred as a placeholder for right now. We anticipate having our master plan discussion next month with a flushed out process in August as we kind of go through the capital budget process. Tony Watha Road is scheduled for construction next year, and they're in design this year, and that includes the bubbler at Arrowhead Park and the hose bib at Wildhaven Park. The other large items, actually I could probably take I still have the park shelter playground replacement in, so I can take that one out of there. I included that all in the Winnicott North peg construction. The mowers, large items, those have already been approved and ordered. So that's already part of this 24 capital budget. There's a line in there for concrete repair and replacement. So talking with a couple of our local contractors, based on the recommendation, it says just have a set amount and you can bid that out. And then in the fall, go through kind of priority needs, and however far $25,000 gets you in a year, you focus on that for the next calendar year. We have a fair amount of concrete that's probably needs replacement panels outside of the scope of what our staff, or probably the time available for public works staff to do internally. This gives an opportunity to kind of either grind down those concrete areas that we have in parks, or do complete panel replacements on a year-to-year basis. The tree account, I'm looking at kind of a general line item for removal, replacement, and treatment of trees. That gives us the flexibility to highlight some of our maybe more mature oak trees or other trees that would need to be receiving treatments like air spading, nutrient feeding, etc., to help preserve the life of those. I don't anticipate us having the same level of removals that we've had over the last couple of years. We are dwindling down on the amount of ash trees in parks, which is great. We've planted well over 100 trees in the last 2 years, young mature trees, most of them in Winnicott Park. And there's a significant amount of time that it takes to now maintain them from kind of year 1 to year 3. And then from years 3 to 4 to 5, we'll start on a pruning schedule of these young trees. Some of the things that dropped out that were in from, at least for now, and this will be up for discussion, was the shade structure at Grand Crossing Park. I think there's still some priority other projects as we're looking at where the funding levels are at. We did bump up a replacement of a truck replacement into this year. We have a 2005 truck that we use for trash hauling of our ball diamond equipment. It's had many brake repair issues this year, so it will definitely qualify for replacement. have concerns over the safety of using it with our staff. It's just not that reliable. The electric vehicle purchase, I'm going to throw it in again, this time with hoping to get support from the mayor if we receive a grant from the Tourism Commission towards the purchase, with the goal of having it available for the special events that we have. The electric vehicle that we have is awesome. We use it daily, parks especially in the spring and fall, but in the summer we dedicate it for our summer camp program for the purposes of hauling supplies and staff to the various locations that we have. But this year we are running with 6 to 7 seasonals, and we just are short of equipment. The other justification is if we do have an agreement with the use of Maywood in the next year or so, that would be another truck that would have a snowplow on it. That would allow both of our full-time staff to be doing snowplow removal with trucks. Right now, we only have one parks truck that can do snow removal with a truck. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So I just wanted to bring that up. The numbers are, you know, if we're looking at a 2.5 to 3 million general obligation borrowing, certainly not all of this is going to make it through the mayor's capital budget. I do think that when we're looking at the larger project at Winnequa North, it's at least worth discussing whether or not we want to propose this lengthier phase of pedestrian paths. In the long run, it's still going to be more cost effective to do one design package and one construction project than building it into 2 or 3 projects. But the cost is pretty significant. I do believe that we can make a tourism application for a portion of that path, as it does support the races and events that we have coming through Monona. So that additional new path, that is the existing path now, serves almost all of our races towards the end of the race. And I believe the new portion of the path would be able to support kind of a finish line in the park and not having to use Nichols Road. How much of that we could ask for in tourism, I'm not sure, but I do believe that there'd be a case that we could at least try to get some of that funded that way. As we move forward in years, that's where it gets a little bit messier with some of the goals that we have. Maywood Park right now, at least from my perspective, the what we do as far as a master plan and eventual construction is going to be somewhat contingent upon either a short-term or long-term lease agreement or otherwise for the use of Maywood School. So we are currently still working out details and a general agreement with the district on what that would look like. But we, as I've explained, we have more demand than supply right now, and we will continue to have that with the amount of kids that we have. The community center isn't the best place for the amount of kids that we have. Like a day like today is a perfect example. We have 3 locations where we put our summer camp kids. We have a fire chiefs conference happening in the main hall, and due to inclement weather, we now are having 75 kids in 2 different rooms, other locations in the community center. So we try to accommodate other city functions during the summertime, but it makes for a very difficult challenge. We get bumped with our program for elections. If there is city functions that need to use the main hall, we work around that. And so kind of securing Maywood School, most likely then Maywood Park would be our home-based park for programming. So that may change what I may recommend that we do at Maywood Park. But that still is scheduled, at least with the stormwater project, to be constructed in 25 with final design next year. whatever happens is the result of a master plan with San Damiano. I still don't think it impacts at least any city funding in the short term, or at least from our department of what we're going to be doing. And we still have what I would consider some larger scale projects at Ahuska and Winnequa that we want to see through. So at least from my perspective, in the short term for next year, we have some maintenance related items, some equipment related items, and the north end of Winnequa and those proposals, I think would be a good discussion place for this committee to kind of talk about the merits of it.
Thanks, Jake. So we're gonna bring the capital budget back again in August, is that right?
I would like to have a potential meeting. Yes, I believe we're supposed to have them in early August. Right now, we'd be looking at August 9th as our next meeting date.
Okay. Right.
I'm just, I'd like to just keep that as the only agenda item for the night.
Right.
But we probably need to, it'll either be a separate meeting for public input for Maywood, or we do it both on that same night. I don't know what your thoughts are. Would you guys prefer to have a separate meeting to have public input participation on concept plans at Maywood?
I think that's a good idea, just based, if nothing else, on how much input we got on the mountain bike path when we put that in at Maywood. You know, the neighbors were rightly interested, concerned about that. So, yeah. Probably better to not do that the same night we're gonna vote on capital.
Okay,
I did have a suggestion on the spreadsheet you had talked about, or indicated that the amount for the playground was included, is also included in the Winnequa North Ped Path construction.
yes,
So I would suggest leaving that in as a separate line item and reducing the amount for the head path. Because right now it's double counted, right?
correct.
Because I think otherwise it may not be, it'll just make it more clear, easy to understand at a glance for the council.
Yeah,
That it's two different, you know, we're talking about two associated projects, but really we wouldn't have the same contractor for both and that kind of thing.
correct. And just how the budget works, we had already approved and borrowed $225,000 for the entire project, including design. We spent about $20,000 at Schaefer for the sewage ejector pumps that were a priority plumbing issue that needed to be addressed.
Right.
We would most likely be looking at a capital budget amendment to do design this year, and looked a bit out in January or early February if this project was approved with funding. So most likely that might be part of the capital budget, but if, depending on how long it takes, I guess, to do the design, I think, you know, I believe our consultant can do it within a month or two and get bid documents ready if we're in agreement with the general scope of the paths. I just wanted to kind of at least share, sorry, you guys, going to share one more time. I know we had talked this pink dotted area. Should have used a different color. It talked about kind of like path location and meandering through the woods around the lagoon on the North Lagoon. That is not included right now, and as far as my staff cost estimates, Two other things with this project that are maybe we'd like to have happen. That part could be maybe a crushed rock, more of a walking trail and not a bike, ped trail. It is a nice walk through that area. Down by the tennis courts, skate park, pickleball complex. Couple issues at play here. There's an electrical panel that serves the lights for both complexes. It's pretty bad shape that probably needs to be replaced. This corner between the pool concession stand and the pickleball, staff and myself are supportive of seeing a fenced in area that could accommodate. One idea we had is we could start reserving out the pickleball courts for corporate events. So businesses could rent out and have us do a learn to pickleball and have an area where food could be catered in or rest in between matches. There's really not good places to sit when you put 16 to 20 people in the tennis pickleball courts. And then the area between the parking lot and the fence is probably best suited to either put some bike parking in, the amount of people riding their bikes. This area certainly could benefit from a drinking fountain for both the skaters and the users of the tennis court pickleball. But I can get those at least cost estimates, and I think that'll be part of the discussion. Just a matter of where we kind of start and end. It just, that's been one issue or one, challenge of just not having either a porta potty, and that's more of an operating budget issue for the amount of use at that area, or access to water.
Yeah, good point. All right, well, I mean, for my money, I would really like to see the ped path project go through, including the blue part. I agree. I think the pink dotted section could maybe be a separate project. But the path projects through Winnequa always get pushed off and get pushed off and get pushed off. And I think, we're already halfway there or so with the funding. So this would, the blue line in particular would really add a lot of value and a lot of access. So if we can, I'd really like to keep it in.
We do have strong support from the senior center department, and I think we'll be getting recommendations from the senior commission. A lot of their work deals with actively aging programs and having a circular walking path right outside their front door would be a big benefit. It's about 0.4, almost a half a mile in distance if I'm measuring it on the map, to kind of go around that loop. The safe routes to school, we would basically be able to bring in a whole north end, getting them across to Winnequa Road, and would take off any walking and biking down Progressive and Rothman, which would be a big benefit. The other part of this project I didn't have indicated, but it would be extending the sidewalk from Greenway down to the park, and then reorienting the way that path goes into the park. If you're familiar with that entrance, it's kind of at an angle for biking and walking. It's not a great entrance in. So there would be a little bit of orientation. And of course, this would be designed out with engineered stamp plans. This is just conceptually, at least what we've talked about in the past. And then trying to add some numbers to the lengths of paths and amount of concrete anticipated.
Jake? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, first, I just want to apologize for being late. I was actually here on time, but my computer was not being cooperative. Just wanted to second Doug's comment. I would be very supportive of that, of doing the ped path. That seems like, where Maywood, your comment about waiting on Maywood to see what develops makes total sense to me. That you can kind of put together a package perhaps with that. But I think Doug is right that that ped path is something that regardless of what we do with that part of Winnequa will be very useful in terms of park planning. And I would be real supportive of that idea, putting that as a priority.
Jake, could you pull up the map of the ped path that you just had up? Question that I have regarding that is the blue line goes to the east of the shelter. And I'm wondering if somebody is renting the shelter, could that be an issue with safety if people are pedaling and walking kind of to the right of that? And would it be safer to move the path to the west side of the parking lot?
I think we can have it oriented where it's off of the shelter block per se. The rationale for where that is it's it allows for spectator seating for ADA accommodation. So when we have our soccer and flag football, we can put fields on either side of this path, and that's where those gray boxes are. So that kind of line is in that zone of the size of our fields and how we can comply with the ADA laws. So the gray boxes indicate just bump outs for wheelchair access, seating that can see either side of that. I do think, certainly conceptually, you'd probably be looking at more of a Y type of deal where you would be swinging out one way or another way and not kind of making a T, on a bike path. Most likely you'd see that triangle shape, almost like we have at Arrowhead with that little planting area in the middle.
Sure, that makes a good sense.
Any other suggestions, things at this point that you would like me to research to potentially include for next year in the capital budget on the parks or the pool? As a reminder, we did not receive any bids on the community center remodel project. We've have a couple contractors that are now interested in parts of it. And we will probably reduce the scope and have a more defined scope and try to rebid that this fall and see where we're at with numbers for that. The pool just kind of keeps humming along with maintenance. I will say this, that there has been at least 3 outdoor pools this year that have had to close due to major mechanical plumbing issues with older pools. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least recommend that in the next couple of years we start push at kind of what planning looks like in a replacement and scheduling of a new pool, because it happens quick and you can't stress test a pool in the middle of winter and know that you're going to have problems. It all starts in April and May when you start up the systems and fill the pool and start the pumps. And so what you see from these communities is a lot of public outrage and disappointment that they don't have a public swimming pool for that summer. And it all deals with old pools. Every pool eventually faces the same outcome as you have a similar catastrophic failure of some sort of the piping system, in which results in not being able to be open for that season. So I don't think we're there yet. I do think that the council over the years has been very supportive of the outdoor pool and the maintenance of it. But it's not that far down the road.
I had one other suggestion, Jake. You should talk to Brad Bruin about if he thinks there's any potential to get the federal alternate transportation funding for the path. I mean, it's a really, by federal standards, it's a really small project, but a lot of those projects are kind of small.
Yeah, I'll double check. I think we looked into it and it didn't meet the minimum requirements, but I do know that, at least from anecdotally, that my colleagues, some said that the federal requirements of that grant program tends to increase the cost of construction because it's got to be spec to federal standards. So that has made it more challenging to see good cost savings on the project, but certainly we can look into that. There's a Dane County Parks grant that you may see on the news, and that has to have a more of a regional benefit. And so this really doesn't quite fit into that bucket either. It's really just more of a local, path through the park. So
Yeah,
certainly we'd look at other funding opportunities as they become available.
I'll reach out to Ben Lyman is the guy's name at MPO who does their bike funding stuff, and
Sure.
he could tell me probably pretty quickly. I think you're right. Federal funding does tend to make the projects more expensive. Although, I mean, not from the city standpoint, because the city, we'd get reimbursed for quite a bit of it, but anyway, just a thought. Anybody else have other questions, comments, things that aren't in, things you think that are in there that, I mean, I don't know if there's anything in there that I would say is like, yeah, let's cut that. It's probably gonna, if things get cut, it's gonna be things that we would like to have in, but anyway, anybody else? Okay. Good enough then. I guess we can move on to, I think it's director's report.
Sure. Well, it's been a while since we've had our meeting and a lot's happened over the last couple months. Certainly, the staff that we have this year has done a great job in working in the park system, putting on events. Most recently with the 4th of July celebration, from the parks perspective, with the drought, we hopped on to pre-watering the fireworks area, and worked with our water utility to get a meter, and backflow preventer, and irrigated that because there was significant concern a couple of weeks before with both our fire chief and the fireworks operator over the potential of grass catching on fire. So our role was to make sure that we tried to make sure we could have fireworks, and we're watering the north end of the park pretty regularly leading up to the 4th. The staff put in a lot of time and kind of aesthetics of the park itself. A lot of compliments on the bridge over the lagoon, the newly planted tree areas. And from our perspective, the festival committee did an excellent job in their role in cleaning up the park on a daily basis. It was a very well-attended festival this year, very busy, all 3 days. The cleanup effort, at least from our end, seemed to be better than it was in years past. There was more trash receptacles out in different areas of the park. We had not only our full staff on the 5th, but also the School to Work program that we coordinate with Monona Grove. They are here 3 weeks out of the summer for 3 days, 4 hours a day, and they brought their staff in through to help clean up, which was great. So I think by the 5th or the 6th, the park kind of got returned back to normal. No major incidents outside of the festival or vandalism or fires in our park system from the 4th holiday. So that was really good to see. Happy to hear it can be a little bit of a challenging time from our end, having that many people in the park. Certainly the Dream Park bathrooms take a beating from the amount of use over that time. But overall, I think from our end, we were satisfied with the outcome and the effort of the volunteer committee to kind of maintain the park, including the carnival ride operators, where they were parked their equipment and vehicles. Moving back around that same time, we've had sod finally installed at Grand Crossing Park. That was included as a line item in our operating budget for this year. Delays are kind of the word of the year with contractors on getting things done. We're hoping to have it done by Memorial Day. So that sod just recently got installed about a week and a half ago, and is being watered in. And we anticipate it kind of being ready for foot traffic in the next week or so. We're hoping now that that's like an every 2 year, maybe if it tracks to when we first put this sod in, but with the ice rink, it eventually does kill the sod and grass and will have to be replaced. We have a beer garden at San Damiano this Friday night. Ladies Must Swing. Fun note, my aunt is part of that group, so I will be interested in hearing my Aunt Nancy play the saxophone. She's watching. Trivia night at Grand Crossing this Thursday, and we're supporting the MESBA Bike the Loop, not Loop the Lake, Bike the Loop event is a new event put on by MESBA on Saturday that will be starting and ending at Grand Crossing Park, and I think having a stop at San Damiano. So that's a new MESBA event. And then next week we start with the Friends of Senior Center concert series, along with our Schluter Beer Gardens. Lots of music opportunities over the next couple of weeks in Monona Parks. We will be starting work up at San Damiano next week with some turf work and seeding and watering and preparation of making the grounds a little bit better for not only our events, but the Celebration on the Shore event. I think that's the big thing. June and July so far has just been a lot of maintenance work, picnic table painting, repairs through the system, watering of the new trees with this drought, virtually no mowing in the last 3 weeks. I think we got out this week for the first time in a couple weeks. Got a lot of watering, ball diamond grooming, maintenance projects from the park end. The pool is doing awesome. So it's like a give or take, right? You get hot weather and no rain. That means the pool is going to be busy. A lot of attendance revenue numbers are looking right where they should be to track on a budget. But it has been hot. So this rain today has been much needed and well appreciated for a lot of different avenues. With that, I would entertain any questions, comments, or concerns.
I had one question, Jake. I had gotten an inquiry from a constituent about the sign, Huska, with the painting of vandalism on it. And then he had contacted me today, I think, saying the sign panel was taken off. So he was, I'm curious what's happening.
Yeah, so we are repainting it ourselves. If you saw the progress of the mural project, and I don't know if we've had a meeting and kind of discussed that, but Will from Community Media put together a really cool time-lapse video that I'll share of the project that kind of organically came up to support and honor Charles Ping, the MG tennis coach, who tragically passed away. The tribute that was painted on the wall was a coordination between our department and students at the high school, led by Emily Havenstein, who is one of our parks maintenance leads, but also an extraordinary artist and has a lot of talent in drawing, and came up with that design with the students and did the majority of the work on it. So she is repainting the graffiti over the sign. unfortunately, that sign company is no longer in business and trying to find the right paint and all that.
Right.
So we have finally got around to getting that off of there. And I will say, knock on wood, since our early rash of vandalism and graffiti, it's been pretty good over the last month. We did remove a few trees on the side of the pool building because we have a security camera that can zoom in and pan to the skate park all the way over to the Dream Park shelter. And in order for a better presence for our police department, we were able to remove a few of the trees to provide better security access for the camera. I don't know if that is precisely what's made the difference, but I'd like to thank our police department because I do think that they've been making more rounds in some of our problem areas in the city. We are having a few challenges at Ahuska with some housing displaced folks kind of hanging around shelter areas, potentially living in parts of the park. Our police department are aware most of the people are more than welcome to be in the park during park hours, but camping in the park is still prohibited. There's been a few complaints from shelter rentals of kind of lingering around, but that I think is kind of to be expected in that area of town.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Pat?
Jake, just a quick question. If you're working, your staff is doing outdoor work at San Damiano next week, any chance there'd be mulch available for the master gardeners who are doing work around the house?
I think so. We had trees we took down in Winnetka Park recently. I don't know if we might have gotten rid of that. I need to check with, no. I'm hoping to, yes, Pat, but the stuff we took down had some leafy stuff and it wasn't good mulch. So I need to check with Johnson's to see if he's got any dead ash next week that he'll be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've
So-
been asked a couple times, so I
Yeah.
just want to make sure we utilize that volunteer work too. So, yeah, let me know on that. And thanks to your staff too for all the setup at the beer garden and everything else that they do. They're awesome. So, if you'd pass that on.
I will.
Jake, can I just piggyback a bit on what Pat just said? I was getting, my wife and I were getting coffee at True Coffee today and watching two of your staff members weeding, which, as most of you know, isn't the most attractive thing to do in a day, working their butts off. And when I left, I was walking out and said, hey, I'm at a park rec meeting today. I'm going to mention that to the other board members, how hard you guys were working. And I think they thought I was kidding. So I'd be on record.
Well, that is good. I will say one of the examples of how, our staff is always thinking of different things. And we have these impromptu meetings and discussions. And I think it was, we had little free library to places have put out free sleds on sledding hills. And Missy was like, we should have free basketballs at the basketball courts. And I was like, I'm sure there's, so she found some little basketball holder that attaches to the hoop or the base. And we got those out and put 4 old basketballs that we've had. And not more than 20 minutes later after we put them in, I drive by and there's 4 kids out there shooting baskets, and gotten one email, one of our adult dads, he's like, I wish we would have had those when I was a kid. How many times I went to the park and didn't bring my basketball. So we are very fortunate to have staff to think of little things like that make the experience a little bit better in our parks, and had them up for over a month and they've all stayed there. So I've been pretty surprised at that. And we've got lots of old basketballs to keep supplying them in, but it's a pretty special team. I would say I'd like to thank Alders Wood and DePula. Recently at City Council, there was an approval for a compensation and staffing study that will be done on behalf of the city in in efforts of the potential referendum. And I think, as you know, the challenges that we've had in our department with building a lot of awesome facilities and now on the trail and trying to maintain them all is just challenging, and keeping together a great team also requires investment in that team as well. And so I know we've had conversations with both of them, and they were supportive of those measures at the council, and look to continue that conversation as we move forward. Because as we kind of move forward, we still have other initiatives that we want to achieve, and that's going to take additional resources in both staffing and finances. But I do think we're in a pretty good spot as of right now with the team that we have. We did welcome a new staff member, Ian Wagner, on June 1st. He's in our after-school program, and he's been filling in and doing a great job. So we're excited to have him on board. And we're about to transition kind of, in our world, summer's over. We're into fall mode. So we'll be kind of getting ready and gearing up for what the fall looks like from an event and registration perspective. But the community's been great this year. A lot of participation in our rec programs, in the pool, some lessons. So it's been a typical Monona summer, other than no rain.
Good. Yeah.
All right. Then if there's no other questions, a motion to adjourn is in order.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All
I
in
think
favor?
Kelly might have had,
What's that?
I think Kelly might have had a comment. or a
Yeah,
question.
she had her hand up. I don't know. All right. All
Okay, I
those
just
in-
want to know, what dates do I need to put on my calendar for the next two meetings? Did we,
Okay, so August 9th for sure.
okay,
Yeah, August 8th is National Night Out. August 1st is the concert. What about August 2nd? You guys want to go back to back Wednesdays? If I do a Wednesday night, like 6 o'clock, public input for Maywood?
I can't do that. I've got a MPO meeting.
Okay,
I mean, I guess, maybe the capital discussion won't take that long, and maybe we can do both in the same meeting.
yeah, I mean, we could. I guess I would ask you guys, do you feel like there's going to be a lot of discussion next meeting about the Capitol? Is there anything that you want to try to get in? Otherwise, yeah, I think you're right, Alderwood. I think it could go pretty quick.
The only thing I think that comes into play for me once in a while, Jake, is when we talk about prioritizing things or timing or looking towards the future. It's sometimes helpful for me to have a short period of time to think about that rather than make decisions on the spot. But maybe Doug's right. Maybe there won't be that many decisions to be made.
Well, and you have the proposed budget now, right? Or actually,
I did just screen share that, so I want to be able to refine things one last time.
Okay,
And then set kind of the priority on it. And I have to double check what we have in the pool to make sure that that's accurate. And we could back it up in a couple of weeks if we wanted to do, the end of that last week in July. And just get capital out of the way. 25, 26.
I'm not getting the feeling there's going to be a lot of discussion about capital.
Okay.
So let's just stick with the regular.
We'll
date.
just plan on the 9th then.
Okay,
And we may not, we're still waiting on the engineer sizing of the stormwater structure, and that kind of dictates what the park concepts could look like.
right.
So I did talk with Blake from Parkitecture this morning. He says he can turn it around pretty quick with a couple of the options. But he's gonna be gone, I think that first week in August on vacation. So that's why I was like, well, we'll try to see when we can, if we need to pull in a different date, but
Okay. I mean, we could always do, if we need to, you could do the Maywood things separately later.
yeah,
But
that's true.
hopefully we can do them both on the 9th. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.